There's a strange kind of loneliness that shows up in the smartest person in the room. Picture it. You're at the dinner table and you say the one thing everyone was circling but nobody had named. And instead of relief, the temperature drops. Eyes flick sideways. Someone changes the subject too fast. You weren't wrong. That's the confusing part. You were right, and being right is exactly what cost you. You've been told you're intimidating or too much or that you overthink everything. It isn't any of those things. What happened to you has a name and decades of research behind it. So stay with me because near the end, I'll give you one question to ask before you speak again. The one that tells you instantly whether a room will pull you closer or push you out into the cold. Let me show you something first. Imagine two people at that table. One is beautiful, one is sharp. The beautiful one turns heads and nobody flinches, but the sharp one says a single clear sentence and something tightens in the room. Both have something the others don't, but only one makes the group feel measured. Beauty you admire from a safe distance. Intelligence walks right up to the fire everyone's sitting around, and it moves the light. Suddenly, people see things they were comfortable not seeing. So let me take you inside it. Here's what's actually happening. There's a psychologist named Abraham Tesser at the University of Georgia who spent years on something he called self-evaluation maintenance. His finding is quietly brutal. We don't feel threatened by strangers who outperform us. We feel threatened when someone close outshines us on the exact thing we base our worth on. A stranger winning a chess tournament means nothing to you. Your brother doing it when being the smart one was your whole identity stings for a week. Tesser titled one paper, "The Pain and Pleasure of Being Close." The closer someone is, the more their brilliance costs you. So when you speak clearly at that table, you're moving the light onto a patch of floor someone else was standing on. Now here's the part that isn't about anyone's childhood, and it matters because this isn't a wound you carry, it's older than you. For almost all of human history, we survived in small groups huddled around one fire. Survival didn't depend on being right, it depended on the group staying together, moving as one, believing the same things. Someone who questioned the map, who said, "I don't think this is true," was a genuine risk to that unity. So evolution wired us to feel a low automatic alarm around the person who breaks the consensus. It's not personal, it's not even conscious. It's a group preservation instinct as old as the fire itself. You didn't do anything wrong. You just carry a light an ancient part of the brain reads as a draft of cold air. But here's the real question. If intelligence provoked this reaction every single time, no smart person would ever have a friend, and that's obviously not true. So what actually decides whether your mind draws people closer or freezes them out? This is the most useful thing I'll say today, so ask yourself this. When you share what you see, are you illuminating or are you exposing? When you're illuminating, your insight hands the group warmth. They see further, they feel smarter for having been near you. When you're exposing, that same insight reveals that someone was wrong, that a person's standing just dropped. Same intelligence, same sentence sometimes, but one widens the circle and the other lets in the cold. And most brilliant people slide from illuminating to exposing without ever feeling themselves cross the line. And here's the part that unsettles most people. Once you know the reaction is coming, you try to fix it. You explain more carefully. You add more evidence. You get more right, thinking that if they just understood the logic, the tension would melt. Let me tell you why that's never once worked and why it was never your fault. There's a researcher at Yale named Dan Gahan who studies what he calls identity protective cognition. When a fact threatens a person's standing in a group they belong to, more facts don't move them. They dig in harder because you were never really arguing about the idea. You were threatening where they sit around the fire. So every time you laid out one more clean, undeniable point, you weren't turning up the lights. You were fanning the exact draft of cold they were bracing against. It's like trying to calm someone down by proving in detail that they have every reason to panic. The better your argument, the worse the freeze. That's not you being bad with people. That's a system doing exactly what it was built to do. And this isn't new, which is strangely comforting. In the 1840s, a doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis discovered that if physicians simply washed their hands, mothers stopped dying in childbirth. He had the data. He was right beyond argument. And the medical establishment didn't thank him. They mocked him, pushed him out, and he died alone in an asylum. There's a name for this exact thing, the Semmelweis reflex, the automatic rejection of a truth that threatens what a group already believes. Or take Barbara McClintock, whose discoveries about how genes move were ignored for 30 years before the same field handed her a Nobel Prize. None of them were punished for being wrong. They were punished for being early, for holding up a light before the circle was ready to see by it. So here's where I need you to be careful, because this is where smart people go to rot. It would be so easy right now to walk away feeling like a misunderstood genius, surrounded by small minds. Don't. That story feels wonderful, and it will quietly ruin your life. You cannot rewire how another person reacts to being outpaced. That's not yours to fix. But how you carry your light into a room, whether you use it to warm people or expose them, is completely yours. Number 1, don't lead with a correction. When you can see someone's about to be proven wrong, that ancient alarm is standing at the door. So spend the first 10 seconds handing them warmth before you hand them light. Say out loud, "You're right that the deadline's the real problem, and I think there's one piece underneath it." You lose nothing true, and you've told their nervous system you're widening the circle, not shrinking their spot in it. Number 2, don't compete on the one thing they built their worth on. Remember Tesser, the sting comes from being outshone on home ground. So when you're near someone whose whole identity is being the sharp one, hand them one specific piece of credit in the first 2 minutes. I only caught this because of what you said earlier. You're not shrinking. You're making the insight something you both found, so it warms them instead of measuring them. Number 3, and this is the one that actually saves you. Don't dim your fire to keep the peace everywhere. That's the slow death, where you get quieter every year until you forget what you sound like at full volume. Instead, find one person, just one, who lights up when you think out loud. One conversation a week where you don't edit yourself down. Say the words, "Can I think out loud with you for 10 minutes?" A single fire where you're fully welcome does more than 100 rooms you shrink inside. I know what it costs you to sit at the edge of so many rooms, holding back the very thing that makes you you. I know how many times you shrank yourself so the group wouldn't feel the cold. That instinct was wise. In rooms that weren't safe, dimming your light was how you stayed at the table at all, and there's nothing weak in that. It kept you warm on nights that would have been very cold alone. But you don't have to live at the edge anymore. Real belonging isn't the silence you buy by disappearing. It's the room that leans in when you speak, the friend who says, "Keep going," the quiet that lands after a true thing is said and nobody flinches. You were never the cold they felt. You were always the light. It's time to stop standing at the edge and start widening the circle. If this reached something in you, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Be honest, the last time your intelligence emptied a room, were you illuminating or were you exposing? And how did you find your way back in? If someone came to mind while you were watching, someone who's spent their whole life being told they're too much, send this to them. It might be the first time they hear it was never a flaw. Give this a like so it reaches one more person sitting alone at the edge of their own fire. And subscribe with notifications on so we can keep exploring these darker corners of the mind together. Be a little gentler with yourself today. You've carried that light a long way. See you by the next fire.